I'll eventually get this figured out. Here we go.
So that's what you think of God?
Yeah.
How about people believe in a God of infinite lovingness and kindness and forgiveness and generosity, sort of like the modern day God? Why spoil it for them?
Oh,
Why not just let them have their fun and enjoy it?
I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I write a book, people can read it if they want to. I believe that it is a liberating thing to free yourself from primitive superstition.
So religion is a primitive
Oh,
superstition.
I think it is, yes.
So you believe it's liberating to tell people that there is no God?
I think a lot of people, when they give up God, feel a great sense of release and freedom.
Why do you think that? I mean, what's your dad? What's your scientist? What's your dad?
I think, well, I've had a lot of letters saying that. And
There are 8 billion people in the world, Dr. Dawkins. How many letters have you had?
No, I haven't done that. Quite true.
Professor Dawkins seemed so convinced that God doesn't exist that I wondered if he would be willing to put a number on it.
Well, it's hard to put a figure on it, but I mean, I put it as something like, 99% against or something.
Well, how do you know it's 99%?
I don't.
Say not 97.
No, I did. You asked me to put a figure on it, and I'm not comfortable putting a figure on it. I think I just think it's very unlikely.
What? But you couldn't put a number on it.
No, of course not.
So it could be 49%.
Well, it would be. I mean, I think it's unlikely, but and it's quite far from 50%.
How do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I put an argument in the book.
Well, then who did create the heavens and the earth?
Why do you use the word who? You see, you immediately beg the question by using the word who.
Well, then how did it get created?
Well, by a very slow process.
Well, how did it start?
Nobody knows how it started. We know the kind of event that it must have been. We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
What was that?
It was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule.
Right. How did that happen?
I told you we don't know.
So you have no idea how it started?
No, nor has anyone.
Nor has anyone else. What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology and designed a form of life that they seeded onto perhaps this planet. Now, that is a possibility and an intriguing possibility. And I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry, molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer.
Wait a second. Richard Dawkins thought intelligent design might be a legitimate pursuit?
And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe.
Well,
but that higher intelligence would itself have had to have come about by some explicable or ultimately explicable process. It couldn't have just jumped into existence spontaneously. That's the point.
So Professor Dawkins was not against intelligent design, just certain types of designers, such as God. So the Hebrew God, the God of the Old Testament, he doesn't exist in your view?
Certainly. I mean, that would be a very unpleasant prospect.
And the Holy Trinity of the New Testament?
Nothing like that.
Do you believe in any of the Hindu gods? Like Vishnu?
How can you ask such a question?
You don't,
How
right?
could I? Why would I, given that I don't believe in any others?
You don't believe in Muslim God?
No. Why do you even need to ask?
Well, I just wanted to be sure. So you don't believe in any God anywhere?
Any God anywhere would be completely incompatible with anything that I've said.
I just wanted to make sure you don't believe in any God anywhere.
No.
What if after you died you ran into God? He said, "What have you been doing, Richard? I mean, what have you been doing? I've been trying to be nice to you. I gave you a multi-million-dollar paycheck over and over again with your book, and look what you did."
Bertrand Russell had that point put to him. He said something like, "Sir, why did you take such pains to hide yourself?"
But if if the intelligent design people are right, God isn't hidden. We may even be able to encounter God through science, if we have the freedom to go there. What could be more intriguing than that?
So did y'all catch what he said? You know, basically what he admitted to in that interview about the.
There's a higher intelligence, but it isn't God.
Yeah,
It's so sad.
yeah, it is really sad. Yeah,
COVID-19 separated us.
it really is. I mean, you think about it, because he is. I feel like he is very close. Like I feel like if you hate something that strongly, you know you have to. Like
You can't hate something that isn't real.
right. Yeah.
And also he said that there might be like this civilization that put their signature on something.
Yeah.
And that's like that civilization is only one person that's God who did put his signature.
Exactly.
So it's just like,
Yeah, it's really strange that he would admit to that, that he says, yes, I do see a signature of a creator in the cells here on Earth. I do see evidence of a creator here on Earth. He'll say that, but I know it can't be God.
what is it? Like, what does he think the higher
Could be aliens, like he was saying, some kind of higher power, which that's exactly right. You go back to the same question, though. He doesn't really answer that question because, yeah, I mean, who made the aliens? And you still can't answer that. And he said nobody knows how it happened. And so it's just crazy that he would be so convinced there is no God, but he doesn't have any evidence there's no God. In fact, he just admits there's evidence there is a God because he admits that there is a signature of a designer in the cells. And so it's just irrational. And that's the best way to explain what he believes. And it doesn't make sense. But, you know, like, why would somebody do that? Why would somebody hold on so strongly to that belief that, you know, this idea that you can't have God? I would imagine some of this morality, you know, that they don't want to accept God's moral teachings. And so that's why they want to not even think about God being a possibility.
I also think since he already like wrote a book, he can't really go back on his like,
Mm.
you know.
Mm.
So he just wants to keep accepting that there's no God.
Yeah, that might be also just being stubborn, you know, just not wanting to go back from what he started doing, a hypocrite, and like go against what he's already said. That's definitely a possibility. But yeah, I really do find the whole thing very sad. Yeah, I mean, anybody who has such strong feelings, I think, is really struggling. And I think it does have a chance of converting.
How old is
70 something, like 71, I think. No, you know what? He might be actually close to 80. I think he's 79. If I remember, some 70s to 80s, somewhere in that time.
Wasn't there another scientist like this is like way older, but Charles Darwin? Who was this?
Charles Darwin, I mean, it's complicated. I actually want to show you a video about him because there's not really an easy answer as far as what he believed in. He was a seminarian early on in his life. Over time, his faith became weaker. Now, whether he actually became an atheist or not, I don't think it's clear. He definitely had a weak faith and doubted God. But whether he actually became an atheist, I have not heard evidence for that exactly. In his books, he would write about God existing, and I don't ever think he was like Richard Dawkins, where he said God can never exist. I think he was open to the possibility of there being God. I just think he had doubts about it. Yes. So I'll let it really quickly if I can get to the screen. Let's see. Show this one on Zoom. And then slideshow. So we mentioned this a few days ago about how you have the Cambrian layer where you don't see any fossils before the Cambrian layer, and then you see a lot of life. There's an explosion of life in the Cambrian layer. Darwin knew about this. He wrote about it in his book. This is in 1800s when he wrote about this. And he was aware of this problem. And he said, I don't know why this happened. I can't explain with my theory of evolution why you see animals appear out of nowhere. He, at that time though, you know, fossil archaeology was a pretty new field and they had not explored much of the world. And so he just had faith that eventually they would find these fossils. But he said, if they never find these fossils, it's going to be a huge problem for my theory because we really need to have these fossils to really prove my theory. But we've had about almost 200 years to research this and look for the fossils. And we have not found them. We have not made any strides in finding these transitional forms that Darwin hoped would be there. And he was very clear that if you don't find these fossils, then my theory really cannot be proven. His book, Origin of Species, about half of it is really talking about the weakness of his theory and just how his theory really was pretty flimsy. He was aware of that. And he talked about the weak parts of his theory. One thing he said in his book is this, that he can demonstrate that any complex organ existed that could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, then my theory would absolutely break down. So that's in his Origin of Species book. So it says any organ at all that you cannot explain how it arose without small intermediate steps to form, then his theory is not valid. So you think about how complex our organs are, like the eye, like the heart. We don't know of a way, we cannot explain a way that you get the eye from very small successive steps. Now, you can have larger leaps, which we do see, but small leaps that makes the eye, we don't see that. And that's just for one organ. Other organs too, the same way. We do not see this. And so this is also, like Darwin said, evidence against his theory. Another very prominent evolutionist, Stephen Jay Gould. So Richard Dawkins, Stephen Jay Gould are the top two evolutionists in the world. He's a paleontologist, Stephen Jay Gould. All paleontologists know that the fossil record contains precious little in the way of intermediate forms. Intermediate forms would be the links between reptiles and birds, for example. That transitions between major groups are characteristically abrupt, which means that you see nothing, then you see a wide range of life. You don't see transitions between animal groups that you expect to see. And then Richard Dawkins says this, it is as though they were just planted there without any evolutionary history. The only alternative explanation of the sudden appearance of so many different complex animal types is divine creation, and we reject this alternative. And so basically what he's saying is that the only way we can explain this really is divine creation. That you look at the Cambrian explosion, and the only way that I know how to explain it is that there was a creator. But he's saying I reject that alternative. So he's very clear that the evidence actually points to God creating these animals. But he says that can't be true. And even though it's the only rational explanation for this, he admits that he's not going to accept it. So evolutionists are actually pretty open about there being this problem with evolution, but they don't want to admit the solution to the problem. Jordan, did you have a question? Okay. But then you have people who, are on education boards like Eugenie Scott, who says that evolution has no weaknesses. And so they hold to this theory just militantly. Even though it's a theory that, just like any other theory, can over time be disproven or modified. But for whatever reason, scientists don't want to hold this theory as able to be modified. They're very strongly opposed to any change in evolution at all. Richard Dawkins says this, it is absolutely safe to say that if you meet somebody who claims not to believe in evolution, that person is ignorant, stupid, or insane, or wicked, but would rather not consider that. And so that's how he views anybody who, disregards his viewpoint, even though he's open, his viewpoint doesn't really make sense without God.
Like when I'm talking about evolution, because I know that there are small changes over time, especially with natural selection.
Yes.
Are they talking about a major sexual is in a series of evolution from the very beginning? Is that what they're saying?
Exactly, because when we're talking about evolution in these senses, or this sense, what it means really is a broad theory to explain all life and how all life came. And so the idea when we say evolution in the sense would be you have life form spontaneously without any divine creation, without any, just on its own. That one cell then breaks into two cells, which then splits into algae and bacteria. You have bacteria then form other bacteria, which forms small organisms, which forms insects, aquatic life, mammals, etc. That's what, when they say evolution in this sense, that's what they mean.
Yeah. If you believe evolution, that it is there are things over time that you have to selection, but there has to be intervention throughout all of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, evolution is such a broad term, but it can mean any change in life. So yeah, I mean, evolution we know exists in some aspects in the world. We do see animals change over time. We know that that's true, but does it explain everything? Well, it doesn't look like it does explain everything.
So is he calling people stupid if they don't understand evolution, but can he not explain it?
That's exactly right. I mean, that's a really good point to bring up. He cannot explain how life came here on Earth. He can, yeah, it's a good question. It's true. I mean, he has no right to do that when he can't explain his theory himself. But if he is able to say, yeah, my theory can't really be explained, he has no right to call people stupid who don't accept it. It's not rational. I mean, that's really, I mean, he's not a rational person in this sense.
So he said that he can't explain it except through like
Divine creation.
But then
Yeah.
he says that if you believe in that,
Yeah, then you're ignorant and yeah.
I don't get that.
No, I mean, you can't. I mean, nobody gets it. I mean, it's just, it's not rational. It doesn't make sense. And so it is sad. I mean, if they're not open to the idea of God, I think if they were, if they really looked carefully at the evidence, I think they would find evidence for God, which basically that's what they're saying. There's evidence for a creator, just aliens, not God.
Does he have like followers?
Oh yeah, he's very famous. Yeah, he's a very well respected, very famous scientist.